My name is Jake Morrison, and I've spent the last 15 years working cattle ranches across Texas, saving every penny I could to buy my own spread. By 1887, I finally had enough money to purchase a small ranch outside of San Antonio, complete with a modest house and enough land to run a decent herd. What I didn't have was anyone to share it with, but I'd made peace with the idea of living alone. After watching my parents' marriage destroy both of them through years of fighting and resentment, I figured solitude was safer than risking that kind of pain. It was a scorching hot day in August when I rode into Millerville to buy supplies and heard about the auction happening in the town square. At first I assumed it was the usual livestock and farm equipment sale, but as I got closer, I realized with growing horror what was actually being sold. People, human beings, were being auctioned off like cattle. I'd heard rumors of such things happening in some of the more lawless towns, where desperate people sold themselves or their family members to pay off debts, but I'd never seen it with my own eyes. The sight made my stomach turn, but I found myself unable to look away. The auctioneer, a fat man with a cruel smile, was calling out bids for a young woman standing on a wooden platform. She couldn't have been more than 22 or 20, with long dark hair that hung in waves around her shoulders and the kind of natural beauty that would have turned heads in any ballroom, but it was her eyes that caught my attention. Dark brown, filled with a mixture of fear and defiant pride that reminded me of a wild Mustang being broken. "What am I bid for this fine specimen?" the auctioneer called out. "Strong, healthy, good for breeding or housework. Starting bid is $50. The casual way he spoke about her, as if she were livestock, made my blood boil. I looked around at the crowd of men gathered around the platform, their faces showing various degrees of lust and calculation, and felt sick. "Do I hear 60? The auctioneer continued. "This one's got spirit, gentlemen. Might take some taming, but think of the satisfaction." A rough-looking man in dirty clothes raised his hand. 60-70, called out another man. "This one better," dressed but with cold, predatory eyes. I found myself studying the woman more closely. Despite her obvious fear, she held her head high, refusing to cower or beg. There was something magnificent about her dignity in the face of such degradation. She wore a simple blue dress that had seen better days, but she carried herself like a queen. $80, shouted a third bidder, a man I recognized as Buck Hawkins, known throughout the territory for his cruelty to both animals and people. The woman's eyes found mine in the crowd, and for a moment, we stared at each other. I saw a flash of something, hope, desperation, before she looked away. "Mindy," Buck called out again, and I could see the satisfaction on his face. He thought he was going to win. I knew Buck Hawkins by reputation. He went through hands like other men went through tobacco, working them until they dropped and then throwing them out without pay. The thought of this proud woman ending up in his hands made my decision for me. $100, I called out, my voice carrying clearly across the square. Every head turned to look at me, including the woman's. Buck's face darkened with anger. 110, he countered. 125, I replied calmly. 130, 150. The bidding continued, escalating quickly. I could see Buck getting more frustrated with each bid, and I knew I had enough money to outbid him if necessary. The question was whether I was really prepared to go through with this insane plan that was forming in my mind. $200, Buck shouted, his face red with anger and exertion. The crowd murmured in surprise. $200 was more money than most people in Millerville saw in a year. $250, I said quietly. Buck stared at me in shock. "You're bluffing, Morrison. You don't have that kind of money." I pulled out my roll of bills and held it up for everyone to see. $300, I said. The silence that followed was deafening. Buck looked like he wanted to kill me, but he didn't have $300, and everyone knew it. "Going once?" the auctioneer called out, his voice excited at the unexpected windfall. "Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in the black hat for $300. As I walked forward to complete the transaction, I could feel every eye in the square on me. The woman, my woman now, legally speaking, watched me approach with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. "What's your name?" I asked her quietly as I handed over the money. "Elena Vasquez," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Jake Morrison, and I want you to know something right now. I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you to free you." She looked at me with confusion and suspicion. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're not my property, no matter what that piece of paper says. You're a human being, and you deserve to be treated like one." "Then why did you buy me?" It was a fair question, and one I wasn't entirely sure I could answer, because the alternative was letting Buck Hawkins have you, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Elena studied my face for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether I was telling the truth. "What happens now?" "Now we get out of here before Buck decides to cause trouble." I helped her down from the platform and escorted her to where my horse was tied. The crowd was already dispersing, but I could feel Buck's eyes burning into my back. I knew this wasn't over. Men like Buck didn't like being shown up in public. "Can you ride?" I asked Elena. "Yes." "Good. We'll need to move fast." I mounted my horse and helped Elena up behind me. As we rode out of town, I could feel her trembling against my back. Whether from fear, exhaustion, or relief, I couldn't tell. Where are you taking me? She asked, after we'd ridden in silence for several miles. To my ranch. It's about an hour's ride from here. And then what? Then we figure out what you want to do with your life. I don't understand. You spent $300 on me. You must want something in return. I pulled the horse to a stop and turned to look at her. Elena, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I don't expect anything from you except basic human decency. You're not my slave. You're not my property. And you're not obligated to me in any way beyond what any decent person owes another. But the money ... the money is gone. Consider it a donation to a good cause, your freedom. Why would you do that for a stranger? Because it was the right thing to do? And because ... I paused, trying to find the right words. Because everyone deserves a chance to choose their own path in life. We rode the rest of the way to my ranch in contemplative silence. When we arrived, Elena looked around at the modest house, the barn, and the corrals with something like wonder. It's beautiful, she said softly. It's not much, but it's home. Come on, let me show you around. I helped her down from the horse and led her toward the house. This is the main house, I explained. 3 bedrooms, kitchen, sitting room. There's a well out back with good water, and the barn has space for horses and equipment. Where will I stay? That's up to you. There's a spare bedroom in the house, or if you'd prefer more privacy, there's a small cabin about a quarter mile from here. It was built for the ranch foreman, but I've been managing on my own. Elena looked surprised. You'd let me live in my own place. Elena, you can live wherever you want. You can stay here, you can take the cabin, or you can leave entirely, if that's what you choose. The decision is yours. And if I stay, what would you expect from me? Nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. If you stay, I'd hope we could be friends. Maybe you could help with some of the cooking and household chores if you wanted to, but only if you wanted to. I'd pay you fair wages for any work you did. You'd pay me, of course. You'd be earning your keep, not serving as unpaid labor. Elena sat down heavily on the porch steps, as if the weight of everything that had happened was finally hitting her. I don't understand you, Jake Morrison. Men don't spend $300 on a woman, and then ask for nothing in return. This man does. Why? I sat down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Can I ask you something? How did you end up on that auction block? Elena was quiet for so long, I thought she wasn't going to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with pain. My father owned a small farm outside of town. When he died last year, he left debts I couldn't pay. The bank was going to foreclose, so I sold everything I could, but it wasn't enough. The banker, Mr. Carlyle, said there was one way I could settle the debt, ... He suggested the auction. He arranged it, said it was better than debtor's prison, and at least this way the debt would be paid. What about family? Friends? My mother died when I was young. No brothers or sisters. As for friends, ... She shrugged bitterly. Amazing how quickly people disappear when you become an embarrassment. I'm sorry. That must have been terrifying. It was, but I survived it. And now I'm here, talking to a man who claims he bought me just to set me free. Forgive me if I'm having trouble believing it. I understand your skepticism, but Elena, I give you my word, you are free to make your own choices. If you want to leave tomorrow, I'll give you money for travel and supplies. If you want to stay, you're welcome for as long as you like. Elena looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to decide whether to trust me. What's the catch, Jake? There's always a catch. No catch. Just one request. What? Give me a chance to prove I'm telling the truth. Stay for a week. See how things go. If at the end of that week you want to leave, I'll help you get wherever you want to go. And if I stay longer, then we'll take it one day at a time. Elena stood up and walked to the edge of the porch, looking out over the ranch. I've never had choices before, she said quietly. My father made all my decisions when I was young, and after he died, circumstances made them for me. Well, now, you do have choices. What do you think you'd like to do? I think, ... I think I'd like to see that cabin you mentioned. I smiled. Come on, I'll show you. The cabin was small but well built, with one main room that served as both living area and bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a front porch that looked out over a meadow where wildflowers grew. It had been empty for over a year, but it was clean and in good repair. It's perfect, Elena said, and for the first time since I'd met her, she smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her even more beautiful than I'd thought possible. There's no furniture except for a bed and a table, but I can bring over whatever you need from the main house. I don't need much, just ... just a place. That's mine. It's yours for as long as you want it. That evening, I helped Elena settle into the cabin, bringing her blankets, dishes, food, and a few other necessities. As the sun set, we sat on her porch, drinking coffee and talking. Can I ask you something now? Elena said. Of course. Why aren't you married? A man with his own ranch, good looking, seems decent? Why are you alone? I was quiet for a moment, considering how much to tell her. I watched my parents destroy each other with their marriage. Constant fighting, resentment, bitterness. I decided early on that I was better off alone. That's sad, maybe, but it's also safe. Safe isn't the same as happy. No, it's not. But it's predictable. Elena studied my face in the fading light. You saved me today, Jake Morrison. I don't know why, and I don't know what it means, but you saved me. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. And I want you to know I'm going to stay for that week. Maybe longer. I want to see what it feels like to have choices. As I walked back to the main house that night, I found myself wondering what I'd gotten myself into. I'd acted on impulse at the auction, driven by a combination of outrage and compassion, but now I had a beautiful woman living on my property, and despite my protestations about expecting nothing from her, I couldn't deny that I was attracted to her. The question was whether I could keep my word about giving her complete freedom, or whether my own desires would eventually complicate the situation. Only time would tell. But as I looked back at the warm light glowing in the cabin windows, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, safe wasn't enough anymore. The first week passed more smoothly than I had dared to hope. Elena proved to be remarkably self-sufficient, taking care of her own needs and gradually exploring the ranch. I made a point of giving her space, checking on her once a day to make sure she had everything she needed, but otherwise leaving her alone to adjust to her new circumstances. On the morning of the 8th day, I was surprised to find Elena waiting for me on my front porch when I came out to start my daily chores. "Good morning," she said, and I noticed she looked more relaxed than she had since arriving. "Morning. Everything all right at the cabin?" "Everything's fine. I wanted to talk to you about something." "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about what you said about paying me if I helped with work around here. I'd like to take you up on that offer." I studied her face, trying to read her expression. "You don't have to work, Elena. The offer to stay was unconditional." "I know, but I want to. I need to feel useful, like I'm contributing something, and I need to start earning money of my own." "What kind of work interests you?" "I'm a good cook, and I know how to manage a household. I could take care of the house, prepare meals, maybe help with some of the ranch bookkeeping if you need it." "You know bookkeeping?" "My father taught me. He said a woman needed to understand numbers to protect herself." "Smart man." "All right, if that's what you want, we can work something out. But I want to be clear about the terms." Elena tensed slightly. "What terms?" "You work when you want to work, not when I tell you to. You set your own hours, take breaks when you need them, and if you ever want to stop, you just say so. And you get paid every week, in cash, so you always have your own money. That's very generous. It's fair. There's a difference." Elena smiled, and again, I was struck by how it transformed her face. "When do I start? How about right now?" I was about to make breakfast, but I'll admit my cooking skills are pretty limited. I can handle breakfast. She followed me into the house, and I watched as she moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, she had bacon frying biscuits in the oven and coffee brewing. "You weren't kidding about being a good cook," I observed. "My mother taught me before she died. She said a woman who could cook would never starve." Another smart parent. As we ate breakfast together, I found myself enjoying the conversation. Elena was intelligent and well-read, with opinions on everything from politics to literature. She'd clearly had a good education, which made her situation at the auction even more tragic. "Can I ask you something?" I said as we finished eating. Of course. What are your long-term plans?" "I mean, you're welcome to stay here as long as you like, but I assume you have goals beyond working as a housekeeper." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. For so long, my life was just about surviving day to day. I've never really thought about what I wanted to do with my future." "Well, now, you have time to figure it out. No pressure. What about you? What are your goals for this ranch?" "I want to build it into something substantial. Right now I've got about 50 head of cattle, but I'd like to expand to several hundred. Maybe get into horse breeding as well." "That sounds ambitious." "It is. But I've got time, and I'm not afraid of hard work. You'll need more help as you expand." "Eventually, yes. But for now, it's manageable." Over the following weeks, we settled into a comfortable routine. Elena took over most of the household duties, and I had to admit that having her help made a huge difference. The house was cleaner and more organized than it had ever been, and her cooking was a vast improvement over my own efforts. More than that, though I found myself looking forward to our conversations, Elena was easy to talk to, and she had a way of listening that made me feel heard in a way I hadn't experienced before. It was during one of these conversations that she told me more about her past. "My father wasn't always a farmer," she said one evening as we sat on the front porch after dinner. "He was a teacher in Mexico City before he came to Texas." "What made him leave?" "Political troubles. He supported some reforms that the government didn't like, and it became dangerous for him to stay. So he brought my mother north and started over. That must have been difficult." They lost everything. Their home, their social position, most of their friends, but they were together, and they were determined to build a new life. Did they succeed? For a while, the farm did well for several years, and they were happy. But then my mother got sick, and the medical bills ate up their savings. After she died, my father never really recovered. He kept the farm going, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. "I'm sorry. Losing a parent is hard enough without the financial stress." "What about your parents? Are they still alive?" I shook my head. They died in a wagon accident when I was 20. By then I was already working ranches and living on my own, so it didn't change my day-to-day life much. But it was still hard. Do you miss them? I miss the idea of them. The people they could have been if they'd been happier together. Maybe they were happy in their own way. Maybe. But if they were, they had a strange way of showing it. Elena was quiet for a moment. You know, Jake, not all marriages are like your parents. Some people actually make each other better, I suppose. I just haven't seen many examples of it. Well, maybe you haven't been looking in the right places. It was comments like that that made me wonder if Elena was developing feelings for me beyond gratitude. I found myself hoping she was, even as I tried to maintain the respectful distance I'd promised her. The test of our arrangement came about a month after Elena had started working for me. I was in town buying supplies when I ran into Buck Hawkins. At the general store? Well, he said with a nasty grin. If it isn't Jake Morrison, how's that expensive purchase of yours working out? I don't know what you're talking about, Buck. Sure you do. That Mexican girl you outbid me for, what was her name? ... I felt my jaw tighten. Miss Vasquez is doing fine. Thank you, Miss Vasquez. Buck laughed. You're still pretending she's not your property. Come on, Morrison. We're all men here. How is she in bed? Watch your mouth, Buck. Touchy, aren't we? You know, I've been thinking about that auction. $300 is a lot of money for one woman. You must be getting quite a return on your investment. Elena is my employee, nothing more. Employee? Buck's laugh was ugly. Is that what you call it? Well, when you get tired of her, let me know. I might be interested in buying her from you. She's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Morrison. Even your precious Elena. I stepped closer to Buck, my hands clenched into fists. If you so much as look at her wrong, I'll kill you. That's not a threat, it's a promise. Buck's grin faded slightly, but he held his ground. Careful, Morrison. Threats like that could get you in trouble. So could harassing innocent women. I turned and walked away before I did something I'd regret, but I could feel Buck's eyes on my back. I knew this wasn't over. Men like Buck didn't forget slights, and they didn't give up easily. When I got back to the ranch, I found Elena in the kitchen preparing dinner. She took one look at my face and frowned. What's wrong? I ran into Buck Hawkins in town. Elena's face went pale. What did he say? Nothing worth repeating. But Elena, I want you to be careful when you're alone here. If you see anyone approaching the ranch, especially Buck or any of his men, I want you to get the rifle and be ready to use it. You think he might try something? I think Buck Hawkins is the kind of man who doesn't like being shown up, and he might try to take it out on you. Elena nodded grimly. I can handle a rifle. My father taught me. Good. I hope you never need to use it, but I want you to be prepared. That night, as I lay in bed thinking about Buck's threats, I realized something that both excited and terrified me. The thought of anything happening to Elena made me feel physically sick. Somewhere along the way, my feelings for her had moved far beyond simple compassion or friendship. I was falling in love with her. The question was whether she felt the same way, and whether I had the right to pursue those feelings given the circumstances of how we'd met. I'd promised her freedom and independence, but was it fair to complicate that with romantic feelings? I was still wrestling with these questions when I heard a soft knock on my door. Jake? Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. Are you awake? I got up and opened the door, finding Elena standing there in her nightgown with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. What's wrong? I asked. I heard something outside. It might be nothing, but I grabbed my rifle and followed her outside. We stood on the porch listening, and after a moment, I heard it too, the sound of horses moving quietly in the distance. Stay here, I whispered. No. If there's trouble, we face it together. Before I could argue, a voice called out from the darkness. Morrison, we know you're in there. Send out the girl. It was Buck's voice, and he wasn't alone. I could see the shapes of several men on horseback at the edge of my property. What do you want, Buck? I called back. I want what's mine. You had no right to buy her. She's not property, and she's not yours. Everything's for sale. Morrison, name your price. There is no price. Now get off my land. We're not leaving without her. I felt Elena's hand on my arm. Jake, let me talk to him. Absolutely not. He's here because of me. Maybe I can reason with him. Elena, men like Buck don't listen to reason. They only understand force. Then what do? We make it clear that they're not welcome here. I raised my rifle and fired. A warning shot into the air. That's your only warning, Buck. The next shot won't be a warning. You can't fight all of us, Morrison. Maybe not, but I can take a few of you with me. There was a long silence, and then I heard the sound of horses moving away, but I knew this was just a temporary retreat. Buck would be back, and next time he might not be so easily discouraged. Is it over? Elena asked. For now, but he'll be back. Maybe I should leave. I don't want you getting hurt because of me. I turned to face her, and in the moonlight, I could see the fear and concern in her eyes. Elena, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I'm not letting Buck Hawkins or anyone else drive you away. This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be. But if something happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me, and nothing's going to happen to you either. I promise. Elena looked at me for a long moment, and then To my surprise, she stepped closer and put her arms around me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." I held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. In that moment, I knew that whatever happened, I would do anything to protect this woman, even if it meant facing down Buck Hawkins and all his men, even if it meant risking everything. I'd worked for it because Elena Vasquez had become more than just someone I'd rescued from an auction block. She'd become the woman I loved. The confrontation with Buck changed everything between Elena and me. The pretense that we were simply employer and employee became impossible to maintain after she'd held me on that moonlit porch. And I'd felt the way she trembled, not with fear, but with something deeper. Over the next few days, we found ourselves stealing glances at each other, our conversations taking on a different tone. Charged with an undercurrent of attraction that neither of us seemed willing to address directly, it was Elena who finally broke the tension. "Jake," she said one evening as we sat on the front porch after dinner, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me, all right? Do you have feelings for me? Beyond friendship? I mean," the directness of the question caught me off guard, but I'd promised her honesty. "Yes," I said simply, "I do." "Since when?" "I think since the first day I saw you on that auction block. There was something about the way you held your head up, the dignity you maintained even in that horrible situation. It impressed me, but you never said anything. How could I? You'd just been through a traumatic experience, and I'd literally bought you. The last thing you needed was pressure from me." Elena was quiet for a moment. "What if I told you the feeling was mutual?" My heart started beating faster. "Is it?" "Yes. But Jake, I need you to understand something. I've never been with a man by choice before." The implication of her words hit me like a physical blow. "Elena ... My father arranged a marriage for me when I was 17. The man was 45, cruel, and that's what he wanted whether I was willing or not. When he died 2 years later, I swore I'd never let another man control me that way. I would never ... double quotes. I know you wouldn't. That's why I'm telling you this. Because I trust you, and because I want you to know that if something happens between us, it will be because I choose it, not because I feel obligated." I reached over and took her hand. "Elena, I want you to know that nothing has to happen between us ever. I care about you too much to risk making you uncomfortable. What if I want something to happen?" The question hung in the air between us, loaded with possibility and promise. "Then we take it slow," I said finally. "We make sure every step is what you want." Elena smiled, and this time there was something different in her expression, a warmth and invitation that made my pulse race. "I'd like that," she said softly. That night, Elena didn't return to her cabin. Instead, she stayed in the main house, and we talked until the early hours of the morning about everything and nothing. Our hopes, our fears, our dreams for the future. "What do you want, Elena?" I asked as we sat by the dying fire. "If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?" "I want to matter to someone," she said without hesitation. "I want to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide. I want to wake up every morning knowing that someone is glad I exist." "You matter to me," I said quietly. "More than you know." "Do I, Elena? You've changed my entire life. Before you came here, I was just existing, going through the motions. You've made me remember what it feels like to be alive." She leaned against my shoulder, and I felt the rightness of it in my bones. "I love you, Jake Morrison," she whispered. Love you too, Elena Vasquez." Our first kiss was gentle, tentative, both of us aware of the significance of the moment. But as Elena responded, pressing closer to me, I felt a passion that had been building for weeks finally find expression. "Are you sure?" I asked, pulling back to look at her. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. What followed was the most beautiful night I'd ever experienced. Elena was passionate but also vulnerable, trusting me with her body and her heart in a way that humbled me. I was careful to let her set the pace, to make sure she felt safe and cherished every moment. Afterward, as we lay together in my bed, Elena traced patterns on my chest with her finger. "I never knew it could be like that," she said softly. "Like what?" "Gentle, loving. I never knew that being with a man could feel like a gift instead of a burden." I tightened my arms around her. "You deserve to be cherished, Elena, always." Is this real, Jake? Or am I dreaming? It's real. We're real. The next morning brought a harsh return to reality. I was outside tending to the horses when I saw a group of riders approaching the ranch. This time, it wasn't just Buck and his men. There was a man wearing a sheriff's badge riding with them. "Elena," I called toward the house. "We've got company." She appeared in the doorway, and I could see her tense when she saw the approaching riders. "Stay inside," I told her. "Let me handle this." The group stopped in front of the house, and the sheriff dismounted first. "Jake Morrison," he asked. "That's me. What can I do for you, Sheriff?" "I'm Sheriff Coleman from Millerville. I'm here about a complaint that's been filed against you." "What kind of complaint?" Buck Hawkins rode forward with a smug expression. "The kind that says you're harboring stolen property." "Stolen property, Sheriff?" Coleman looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Hawkins claims that the woman you purchased at auction was sold illegally, and that she rightfully belongs to him. On what grounds?" "He says he had a prior claim on her, that there was a debt arrangement between him and her previous owner." I felt my anger rising. That's a lie, and you know it, Buck. Prove it, Buck sneered. Show me the paperwork that says the sale was legal. The problem was, I didn't have any paperwork beyond the basic bill of sale from the auction. I'd been so focused on getting Elena away from that horrible situation that I hadn't thought to investigate the legal details. Sheriff, I said, even if there were irregularities with the sale, that doesn't give Mr. Hawkins any right to the woman. She's a human being, not property. The law says otherwise, Buck interjected, and the law says she belongs to me. Actually, a new voice said from behind us, the law says no such thing. We all turned to see Elena walking toward us, carrying a folder of papers. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step back, Sheriff Coleman said. I don't think so, Sheriff. You see, I have something that might interest you. Elena opened the folder and pulled out several official-looking documents. These are the papers for my father's estate, she said, including the documentation of his debts and the legal proceedings that followed his death. She handed the papers to the sheriff, who examined them carefully. According to these documents, Elena continued, my father's debts were settled through the sale of his property and livestock. There was no provision for the sale of family members, because such sales are illegal under Texas law. That's impossible, Buck sputtered. The banker told me. The banker lied to you, Mr. Hawkins, just as he lied to me when he told me the auction was legal. Sheriff Coleman looked up from the papers. Miss Vasquez is correct. These documents show that all debts were legally satisfied without any provision for human chattel. The auction was illegal, which means any purchases made there are void. What does that mean? I asked. It means Miss Vasquez was never legally property to begin with. She's a free woman, and always has been. Buck's face turned red with rage. This is ridiculous. I demand ... You demand nothing. The sheriff cut him off. Mr. Hawkins, if you continue to harass Miss Vasquez or Mr. Morrison, I'll arrest you for stalking and intimidation. This isn't over, Buck growled as he wheeled his horse around. Yes it is, Elena said firmly. It's been over since the moment Jake Morrison decided to treat me like a human being instead of property. After the sheriff and his men left, Elena and I stood together on the porch, watching them disappear down the road. How long have you had those papers? I asked. Since the beginning, I brought them with me when I came here. Why didn't you show them to me before? Elena smiled. Because I wanted to see what kind of man you really were. I wanted to know if you would keep your word about treating me as a free person, even when you thought you legally owned me. And you passed the test with flying colors. I pulled her into my arms. So what happens now? Now we build the life we want together. As equals, as partners, as people who choose to be together because we love each other. Is that a proposal? Elena laughed. Jake Morrison, are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking if you'd consider it someday. When you're ready? I'm ready now. I've been ready since the night you told me I mattered to you. 6 months later, we were married in the little church in Millerville, surrounded by the friends and neighbors who had come to respect Elena for her strength and intelligence. She wore a white dress that we'd ordered from San Antonio, and she'd never looked more beautiful. As we exchanged vows, I thought about the strange journey that had brought us together. I'd gone to town that day planning to buy supplies, and had ended up buying a woman's freedom instead. But in freeing Elena, I'd somehow freed myself as well from loneliness, from fear, from the belief that love was too dangerous to risk. Do you, Jake Morrison, take Elena Vasquez to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Elena Vasquez, take Jake Morrison to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. As I kissed my bride, I heard the cheers of our friends and neighbors. But all I could focus on was the woman in my arms, the woman who had taught me that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply treating someone with the dignity and respect they deserve. Elena had come into my life as a purchase, but she'd become my partner, my equal, my beloved wife. And I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. As two people who had chosen each other freely and completely, the auction block where we'd met had been a symbol of degradation and despair. But from that horrible place, we'd built something beautiful, a love based on mutual respect, trust, and the radical idea that every human being deserves to be free. As we rode back to our ranch, our home, Elena leaned against me and whispered, "Thank you for giving me a cabin instead of a collar. Thank you for teaching me the difference," I whispered back. And as we began our new life together, I knew that I'd never made a better investment than the $300 I'd spent to buy Elena's freedom, because in freeing her, I'd found my own liberation as well. The end.